Alibi, a claim or evidence that someone was elsewhere when an act, especially a criminal one, is alleged to have taken place. For the days 5 to 7 of this particular trial, the Devyn Michaels trial, the defense decided to put that particular idea to the test.
Looks like a work van, doesn't it?
Which unintentionally opened the door for the prosecution to introduce one piece of evidence that reshaped the entire perspective of their theory.
I see a car in the neighborhood and it stops in front of our house.
So on this video, I shall be focusing on the narratives used by both the prosecution and the defense throughout the trial and the moment that their stories changed everything. By doing this, we can actually have a cohesive narrative that's closer to the truth and simply reject the bad ones. Hi, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man, and welcome to Ketchup Court, where we are on a mission to structure the chaos of trials bit by bit so that it can be digestible for you. If you're unable to sit through all 7 hours of a live stream feed, or you're unable to go to the courtroom and witness the proceedings for yourself, we've got you covered right here. As with all of our recaps, the trial reports of the trials that we do cover on here is available on the Ketchup Court website. This is where you can get the timestamps of the key testimonies that are made by a certain witness, glean the importance of that witness and the facts of the case for an easier catch-up. The links are in the description below. Now that we know the outcome of this trial, she was of course found guilty without much time spared for deliberations. The next step is explaining why this was the case. This video is going through and breaking down the final narratives, the final theories, the final piece of evidence that the jury were left to wrestle with. So I will only focus on the critical data that has come out on day 5 to day 7 and bring together the final timeline and put everyone's narratives into one cohesive bubble and see what would likely have happened that day. To understand this, we have to go back to the opening statements just for a few seconds and just take a few of the key points that was highlighted there. So from what I can glean from the opening statements, both the defense and the state had agreed that Johnathon was moving his stuff from Yoko's residence to Devyn's property. However, that's the only agreement as their theory converged from there. So, converged? Is that the word? Let me just say split. I'm sorry. As both their theories split from there. The state's narrative was actually simple. Devyn lost the custody of the kids, so therefore that drove her to kill John. The defense, however, of course, took a different route to this, and they said that Devyn, Johnathon, and Deviere were in a kind of a love triangle situation in which Devyn was expressive that she wanted a divorce, which would trigger Deviere to do what he did to, of course, set forth the death by a culprit theory. However, this is where everything unravels, because when the timeline was being established to the jury from the days 2 to 4 of the trial, we went through this in depth on the day 4 recap. Naturally, as more and more information came out, because that recap was not complete, there was not enough information to put together a full timeline. But now that everything is in, I can do that. So let's recap that timeline and now include all the new relevant info. So to recap, 8 to 9 p.m., Devyn and Johnathon were at Yoko's residence, moving things into Devyn's residence. This is where everything started. Around 9:01, they arrived at Devyn's residence to unload on all those things and left Devyn's residence at 9:32 p.m. to go to the Chevron store. From 10 to 10 past 10 p.m., both Devyn and Johnathon left the Chevron store and returned back to Yoko's residence. Johnathon was with Nikki, who we know is Devyn at this point, at the residence. This was firmly established by Yoko. And according to Yoko, John was cooking and said that he was going to rest and return to Devyn's residence to pick up his belongings. Now that that's established, we have to focus on everything that Yoko says here, because this particular detail flips everything for the prosecution narrative and was a real turning point for the defense narrative, as this is where everything became unstable. Yoko testifies to seeing Devyn looking surprised when she had seen her. The light was on in the room and she was carrying dishes and the door was wide open.
Kitchen, she encountered Nikki
coming to the kitchen.
And how did Nikki appear to you?
She feels that she was surprised.
Did you observe anything weird about Nikki at that point? Did she have any blood on her or anything at all?
We don't see anything. She brought a couple of dishes, still some food left, and then brought to the kitchen, and she washed, cleaned.
She washed who?
Yoko washed.
Yoko-san washed.
Yeah, Yoko-san.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nikki brought the dishes. Was she bringing them from John's room?
That's correct.
Could you see if the light was on in John's room?
So that's correct.
These details really do matter. Therefore, to understand why this matters, we need to break down what happened on day 5 to day 7 and use this final bits of information to fill in the missing gaps of the timeline. There was a host of witnesses. I won't go through all of them, but the focus is going to be on Dennis Ozawa, the lead detective, Kyle Lapish, one of the detectives that was finishing off from their day 4 testimony, Clinton Campbell, another digital forensics examiner, Douglas Lyhow, I believe his name is, and the witnesses from the family services, which all served to tie up the state's theory. Now, the defense did put on their own witnesses. It was only 2 in general, but I'm only going to focus on one because that's really all that's important, and that is Mr. O'Brien, who was their digital forensics examiner. Dennis Ozawa was the lead detective for this particular case, and he testified to all the work that his team had conducted with the investigation, and he was hypothesizing that because Johnathon was at Yoko's residence, key hypothesis here, because Johnathon was at Yoko's residence with Devyn from 10 p.m. and the last person to see him was Devyn leaving the house at 2:04 p.m., compounded with Johnathon's phone being found at Devyn's residence by the driver's side of her vehicle by the garage, because it was found there with Johnathon's blood smeared on it, then he says that the murder must have happened during the times of 10 to 2 a.m. Decisively, the jury asked 2 key questions, which was
there an inventory of tools taken in Deviere's work van and verified with his employer?
There was not.
They also asked regarding the missing knife that was mentioned by Masao Yoshida on day 3. We didn't really get much information around that. And Dennis Ozawa filled in the blanks and basically said that it was like a meat cleaver hatchet type of knife, and also that it was non-serrated. These jury questions and the responses to them still does leave things hanging on a balance, but no doubt, make no mistake, the fact that the tools were not taken from Deviere's work van is a crucial, critical piece of information for the jury to deliberate on for a number of reasons, which we are going to get into much later. So going back to the timeline around this hypothesis that was given by Dennis Ozawa at 1 p.m. to 1:15 p.m., Yoko had testified to being in the kitchen with Nikki, which is where she describes Yoko describing the light being on. Devyn Michaels also being with the dishes as she was coming out of the room, and well, of course, she looked surprised and the door was wide open. Now let's put this into perspective of the murder occurring at 10 p.m. to 2:04 p.m. If anyone was to witness murder at any time during this time frame, based on what Dennis Ozawa, the detective, was basically testifying to, it would definitely be Yoko, but she did not see anything. There would have been blood splatter at this point. So many things that was going on. So naturally, this is a doubt and certainly advantageous for the defense. However, that's not where the story ends. To fill in the blanks, and I am going to butcher the pronunciation of his name. However, Douglas Lyner's day 6 testimony becomes a real turning point in regards to this doubt, as he and his partner were the last to interview Devyn Michaels after she was arrested. So on the video of the interview, Devyn says that she was giving Johnathon a massage as he was touching her.
I didn't want to be in a physical sexual relationship with John. Me hanging out with John was fine. We got along well enough for that. Yes.
let's talk about that. He's laying here, got a massage, he's rubbing on you. You said at some point you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, I just started to get on my nerves because he kept grabbing on me. I already said no, stop touching me.
Okay. Then what happens?
I hit him, he stopped touching me.
What'd you do?
Some staff thing that was on the fireplace.
Okay, so the fireplace in the chamber.
Yes.
So he's laying on the bed, you get off the bed, walk over to the fireplace. What do you grab?
This staff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know what it's called.
Describe it. As hard as you could, like you use one of your ears.
Okay.
One hand, two hands, right hand, left hand.
My right hand.
Your right hand. Okay? Did you say anything before you hit him?
Stop.
Stop. Why did you say stop?
Because he kept touching me.
Okay.
I gave everything to go, yes.
No, after you open.
No, I was just cleaning.
What were you cleaning?
The dishes and everything.
Stop. What's everything?
Just cleaning.
What were you cleaning?
I was literally just cleaning up the area. When I left, when I hit him, he was breathing. I didn't.
How do you know it's weird?
You could tell the person was breathing.
Did you say anything to you?
No.
Why?
Because he was unconscious.
Sequencing all of that, if the murder took place at the hours of 10 to 1 p.m., Yoko would have heard it 100% because she said that she was upstairs awake watching YouTube videos and also reading a book before she had gotten downstairs at 1 a.m. However, this is the schism between both the state and the defense theories. The state is saying that the murder had occurred at this point, and because Jonathan's had blood on it, Jonathan's phone had his blood on it, it would be around this time that the murder would have occurred. And the defense, of course, rejects this theory and says that is the third party, Deviere, in this particular case, that is the one to have done it after Devyn had already left Yoko's residence. When the defense made that theory, that's just when it just stops making sense. When you put this time frame into perspective, if you ask the defense, it looks nothing like that. And that is just what's comical about all of this. Focusing on the defense, just to bring a lot more clarity as to what happened at 1:15 a.m., we now have to go to the cross-examination of Carl Lapiche, where he testifies to a footage of a white van driving around the Paladura neighborhood.
It looks like a work van, doesn't it?
It does. Actually, it's like a Chevy type work van.
Are you able to tell us what time this image was captured?
No, I'm not.
Which, okay, I guess it makes sense to highlight this van driving around that neighborhood because you have Devyn's Nissan Armada in view, and the van does resemble Deviere's work van. Of course, this was strategic to keep their theory alive, and it makes sense as we were presented with pictures of the same van at around 9 a.m. to 6 a.m., 7 a.m., saying that the van never left. I didn't show Devyn's van in the previous recap because I didn't think it was going to be an issue that they were gonna raise on. I didn't really think that they were going to try and present the idea that Deviere used this particular van to get to the scene, because I thought that would damage at least leave a lot of room open to be attacked and just narrow the scope of their third party culprit, because they don't have to focus on Deviere. They could just focus on somebody else putting together and commissioning the crime. So it just wouldn't make sense in my head anyway. I just thought it would be extremely stupid and damaging for their case to really bring up this van being used to drive around the neighborhood. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was the reason why the jury asked the question to Dennis Ozawa in regards to the inventory of tools being taken from Deviere's work van because he was the next witness after Carl Lapiche. When the defense put on their witness, Sean O'Brien, a forensic examiner, to testify the messages sent by Deviere saying he was going to sleep, I thought, okay, that's cool. Highlight that because that's Deviere himself creating that alibi for him by saying that he's going to go to sleep. This gamble could have, in some realm, paid off until on cross-examination, it opened the door to very critical information to come in. But also there was 3 voicemails being played. I'm only going to focus on voicemail number 2.
Mom, I've been waiting for you to come home, and I haven't seen you anywhere. So, if you could, please give me a call. I'm very worried about you. I'm very scared. I don't know if you got in a car accident or any church next. And I'm getting very worried. Please call me, please. I'm going to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night. I can't fall asleep. I've been trying to get everything prepped for school tomorrow. So, Deviere's knocked out, today's knocked out. I can't fall asleep.
The little girl could be heard saying that Deviere is knocked out. Like, this was the knockout blow for the defense because now the story that you've just crafted could be untrue. It is untrue. I mean, just based on what this little girl is saying, that she knows that Deviere is gonna sleep. Deviere messages at 10 that she's going to sleep and was already in bed. So I just have to disregard the alibi theory just for the purposes of this timeline because it's just too many leaps and bounds to try and make it fit here. And here is why all of the sequence of events regarding Deviere really matters in all of this, because when we now revisit the 1 to 1:15 a.m. time slots when Yoko sees Devyn, we have to logically split this moment into 2 events based on the data that we have. 2 key pieces of information determines why this should be the case. The blood being on Johnathon's phone that was recovered at Devyn Michaels' home, and Devyn Michaels telling the detectives that John was drunk, and Devyn telling Yoko the same thing, that John was drunk.
Did you talk to Nikki about what John was doing or where he was?
Yoko-san didn't ask her, but Nikki voluntarily told her that John drank, started the drinking, and then went to the bed.
And I will admit, I didn't understand the significance of John being drunk unless Devyn was trying to create an alibi for herself whilst being there at real time. So now this actually does matter because splitting the events into 2 parts actually now puts it as from 10 to 1 a.m. This is likely when the candle holder bash into the head had likely occurred, which probably happened around the hours of 12 to 1, maybe the tail end of 1 p.m. So when Yoko now happens to come downstairs and sees Devyn, that's the surprise. At least in my head, that would be the surprise because not that she didn't expect Yoko to be home. She saw her, but she probably thought she would be asleep. So when they were interacting and then she says to Yoko that Johnathon was drunk, this would now suggest that she was offering this information because she knows that she just hit him. And based on her own words, he was unconscious after being hit, but was still breathing, all of those things. So at that point, he could have already been dead. It also explains, even though the light was on and even though the door was wide open, it would be believable for Yoko to not think there was anything much because, yeah, Johnathon is a drinker. This is why those questions actually does matter now. Johnathon is a drinker and he would drink. So, yeah, makes sense. He is knocked out cold on the bed. He was drinking. What this definitely aids with is the fact that there's no blood at this point. So the hit on the head could not have caused, we have been hit before, like walking into the walls or something like that. I'm imagining with a blow like that, it would cause someone to go unconscious, but might not always result with bleeding. especially bleeding at the magnitude of how he was found. So logically, I have to split this because the bleeding could not have happened from 12 to 1. Because Yoko would have noticed it. Yoko would have seen, hey, what's that blood doing there? And she would have witnessed the actual murder at this point. And then Devyn has done it. But that's not what happened. They talked for probably longer time. And then she went to upstairs at 1:15, she being Yoko. So putting all of that into perspective, that's what makes the most logical sense. But how can I explain the issues that does poke holes with the state theory? Like, for example, the thud that supposedly heard by Yoko that woke her up. This is a lot of questions that people will naturally have. Now that we have established that the decapitation have to have taken place after Yoko had gone to bed at 1:15 and in being in bed for in that 15-minute time frame that Devyn Michaels would have had to commit the decapitation and finish the job basically, and try to hide the fact that it was a blunt force object that basically killed him. More and more questions do arise in regards to the mechanism that was used for the decapitation. We already know from the day 3 testimonies, I forgot her name unfortunately, but it was the forensic anthropologist. She opined that a mechanical saw was likely used to cut off the bone in regards to the head. And so, I mean, Yoko slept through all of that noise. So the door logically should be closed at this point to carry all this out. And that's one possibility why she would not have heard it. But the third being heard at 2 a.m., this has to be examined a bit closer, because the one thing that made me believe that this thud was not anything to do with the saw or anything like that, it was Yoko actually leaving the residence. This would be the door being banged or something like that, because she would likely be leaving in a rush or after doing all that she's done basically. It's very critical for a number of reasons, because she woke up to the dogs barking. So why would the dogs be barking at this point? And in my opinion, I really believe she went to the garage and picked up the tools. Dogs, from what we know, they know Yoko. Dogs, from what we know, they know Devyn. So I don't think, maybe they would have been barking early on. Like, I think that would be the case. They would have been barking from early on, if that was the case. However, when Yoko went to get the tools to do all of this and was walking through, and the tools likely had blood on it, this is what would have triggered the dogs to have been barking all this time, because they would have sensed all of that. There is also definitely enough time to clean up the place, and I do believe that Devyn was actually telling the truth about cleaning the area. That's what's key words, cleaning the area, on the detective interview.
No, after Yoko.
No, I was just cleaning.
What were you cleaning?
The dishes and everything.
Stop. What is everything?
Just cleaning.
What were you cleaning?
I was literally just cleaning up the area. When I left, when I hit him, he was breathing. I didn't
know he was breathing.
And in my opinion, this was a very subtle confession, because when we split the story, she mentioned having the dishes. In context, she would be cleaning the dishes in the kitchen when she was speaking with Yoko. And the cleaning of the area would be after cleaning the dishes, because it doesn't make sense why you would say I'm cleaning the area, but the dishes are the subjects of the cleaning. That just, area and objects do not, it doesn't, I don't know, that just doesn't make sense in my head. So that's why I believe that this was the subtle confession, that she was actually cleaning the room, and that was at a different time frame. But she realized this tell, and then she threw the dishes in there to try and justify it, which is why I believe it's split like that and opposite like that, because she was remembering a different time frame. That's what I think. So both of these things did happen. We know that she was cleaning the dishes. That's how she knows she spoke with Yoko. That part is actually true. We have that corroborated with Yoko. So that was true. Both events are true. But what she is doing, in my opinion, is trying to distort what's happening and using a truth to cover a lie, basically. That's basically what's happening. Can I actually explain the lack of blood on her? Absolutely not. I can't explain that. And I have no idea if she was wearing one of those COVID suits, one of those Breaking Bad suits where you're doing the decapitation and the blood is spilling on you, etc., but you're covered, etc. I have no idea if she had a gym bag with clothes so that she can change the clothes. I have zero idea on all of those things. However, the game changer is that the state's theory is just not dependent on those doubts to be fixed, on those questions to be answered. It's not dependent on what she did after the work. It's all built around why she did what she did and what means did she do to carry out this murder. And it was all laid for them on a silver platter by Devyn Michaels herself. She said that she hit him over the head. He was unconscious. He was still breathing. The mere act, you can see those things can be true. However, for the theory to drive home that this was actually murder, he could have stopped breathing at any point that when you were speaking with Yoko and you just didn't realize it. The state went on to present the family services to show exactly why she did this particular crime, as Nicholas Asen, Yolanda Lizardo, and Elizabeth Woods all testify to a custody transfer of her 2 kids to Johnathon on the 27th of October 2022. Fatally, Elizabeth Woods testifies to Devyn Michaels, telling her that she had to do it.
Then the next day, on August 17th, 2023, you actually met with the mother, Devyn, who was at the Henderson Detention Center, correct?
Yes.
Devyn told you during the conversation that she had to do it, correct?
Yes.
Devyn then said that Johnathon had wanted to move back in, right?
Yes.
He wanted something more, but she did not, correct?
Yes.
She explained her relationship with Johnathon was transactional, correct?
Yes.
And then elaborated that she would have sex with him and he would pay bills, correct?
Yes.
Devyn went on to explain to you that she was rubbing Johnathon's back and then cut herself off in the conversation, correct?
That's correct.
Here is why that custody testimony, why that moment really does matter. All through this trial, the defense narrative has always been that this particular family is not a normal family, and Deviere was being driven to commit this murder because he was afraid of losing Devyn to his dad. So with all of that evidence coming in, is just the theory has just been logically dismantled. So the question around the defense theory is no longer why is Devyn covering for Deviere, but now is why is Devyn covering for Devyn? Now that we have all of that, it puts all of the interviews that she was giving into context. The state delivered their theory with such precision, especially in the end with connecting with the jury, especially when they were highlighting the improbability of Deviere's involvement. Even if the state had lost this case, you just got to give props to that, because I think that's a powerful technique to use to put Devyn, to be the mouthpiece for Devyn and go and sit at the witness stand and just deliver to the jury and say, this is what, I don't know. That's just strong method acting for me. I don't know. But I just thought that was a very important technique that they use to really deliver how absurd, not only absurd that theory is, but just how he is being used as a scapegoat to really drive home that point. I know I don't take much stock in closing arguments, and I don't know if juries even take much stock in it either. I just thought if you're going to deliver on a theory, this is literally top class stuff, top class way to deliver on that theory. So let's wrap all this up. What exactly is the truth? What actually happened that night? I believe that every decision that she made came down to when she went back to Yoko's residence at 12 p.m. And then she got to see a lot of the police officers there. I don't usually take stock, as I said, with opening and closing arguments, at least for the purposes of this closing catch-up and putting it all together. I do actually have to take that hypothesis that the state gave, that she just blocked out everything. I am inclined to agree that she may have blocked out everything, because based on all of the data, why? It just doesn't make sense. Why? If you know you've committed this crime, you made the call, you know you have the phone, you know all of these things. There's no calls to represent that she was called to even go to the residence. At least not for. I may have missed it. If I made any errors in this video, let me know in the comment section and I'll address it. But I don't think she had any triggering call that will make her go back to Yoko's residence. So if you know you've committed this crime, and if you know that what you did was bad from 12 midnight onwards, and every action between all that, if you know that fact, why would you go back to Yoko's residence after picking up your kids? This would probably be the best time to get out of town, go to Mexico, live your life out of nowhere. I don't know. But she returns back to Yoko's residence. And this is why I truly believe she blocks it out, because the minute she got to Yoko's residence, everything floods back. And she just remembered that what she did that night, it just got back. And she's like, she must have got to the residence and asked herself, why are all these people here? What happened? What happened? And then it floods back. And then she's like, shoot. And that's when she went into self-preservation mode. I mean, you even have the trip data. Like, it showed that the car was running.
Appears the 2698 Paladura Drive address gets there around 12:07 in the afternoon.
Yes, that's correct.
And the car stays on at this point, it looks like?
Yes.
For 43 minutes. And this was the entire time that she was being interviewed. The car was not switched off. So I have to take that little bit of data to just suggest that she was probably in a state of shock when she saw the police and all of these officials being there when she was being questioned. I do believe that this was self-saving, like trying to save face, because end of the day, that's what changes everything. Because she said that she was married to Deviere, then goes to the second set officers, realizes, oh shit, I can't really say that because I have been having sex with Johnathon. That is actually true. Gives them a whole story that's distorted, in my opinion. Give them half-truths and full truths. Was scared to even see the child coming in to give the phone, and says that's all you need. She didn't expect all of these things to happen the way she did when she got back to the property at her house to have the second and third interview. I don't think it really matters, in all fairness, what she says about the wallets and all of those things. I think that's just a smokescreen. I do believe that's a true memory, and as we have already seen, she has used true events to try and cover up the truth. The garage door was left open, but that just wasn't true, because we heard from Deviere that the garage door was actually closed. This was another subtle confession, because how would it be open? And I was quite surprised that the state didn't really go too much in on this kind of fact, because that's likely where she would have got the tools from, in my opinion. So her saying that the garage door was open, bit of truth that slips out there as she was trying to preserve and save herself in all of this. So for her to say that Deviere was just a friend and all those things, that's probably true, because in her mind, she just wanted the divorce on the 5th of August. So that does make sense why she would believe that, because technically they were not divorced, and technically she did express that she just wants a divorce. So that's why she would believe that Deviere is just a friend with all those things, and then try to flip-flop around that and try to make it seem as if her and Johnathon did not really have any connection, so that she can remove herself from being responsible for anything that she did, because as she put it, as she tried to put all of this together, the narrative together, bringing the ex, all of those things, it seems like projection to me, because it just seems like that's what she wanted. It seems like she just wanted to make this work with Johnathon. She even offered him to come and stay at the house because she was hurt by whatever was going on with Deviere, hurt by that because of the whole cheating thing. Wants Johnathon to come move into the house, try to make things work, something. And I really believe that the truth might be here, that Johnathon probably said no, probably said something that just pissed her off, because she knows that he doesn't care about her. She was probably vulnerable to learn that the son that she was with was cheating. We can go into the age gap thing here, because I think we got to learn that he has moved on to a new partner now. But we can go into age gap thing, because you can maybe think that she, being the older woman, might feel like, I'm losing everything, really. If this younger person doesn't desire me, and someone closer to my age doesn't desire me either, and yeah, he just wants to keep things transactional as they have always had, the sex, all of those things, it kind of makes sense why everything that she's told Elizabeth Woods would be the truth. Like, it just would be, yeah, like, we were just transactional. So the fact that she is offering the information of I want to go back with, Johnathon wanted to go back with the ex, and he threw the engagement ring around. I think it's just more like, I don't want to be with you, Devyn. I have got a new girlfriend. This is like, they didn't find the engagement ring, but that's just her projecting and like revealing that all of this is my opinion, but it's just her revealing that there was likely a conversation about getting back together, about trying to get the family together, trying to keep everything together, because she just lost Deviere, and now she just wants to get with Johnathon. Johnathon rejects it because he's got a new partner. If that's true, if it is, let's just say that's true, that's the rejection, because that's what would push someone to do something like this. And when she hit him with the head, with the candle holder, and saw that he had likely died or not breathing, she panicked, and she just wanted to try and get rid of anything that was tying it back to her. I think that she only offered him the place to stay because she thought that that's the only way she was going to smooth things over and get back with him, in my opinion. And he just probably reminded her at the same time, look, it's nothing serious. I'm just moving in with you just for the bankruptcy reason. I'm trying to make things work with my new boo or whatever. That's if we're trying to make sense of anything that she's saying. I think that's closer to the truth. Everything else is just noise. But what do you think? What's your theory in all of this? Hopefully you guys have caught up with all of this trial, and you guys have been able to follow us on this daily recaps that we have been covering, that we have been doing, in regards with this trial. Let me know how you're feeling in the comment section. Let me know what your theories are as to why Devyn would do something like this. The fact that we even got to learn that Devyn was offered, I got to learn this as I was going through the case. I didn't know this before, but apparently she was offered a 15-year plea deal, and she turned it down. Her lawyers, they're very good. Robert Draskovic is a top lawyer in Las Vegas, and I do believe, based on the facts that he had to work with, he did present a theory, and he made just one mistake. I really do believe that the one mistake was showing that Devyn's van and zoning in on it being Devyn. I do think that that's the only mistake. He should have kept the scope wide open for anyone to have done this and allude to Devyn being the person, but he narrowed the scope too much. But that's the risk that I was talking about on the opening catch up on the first day recap. That's the risk, but he still did a good job. He still defended his client really well. So him even getting her, or I believe it was this legal team anyway, to even get her the 15-year deal is amazing. She could have been out in 10 on good behavior. But for her to turn all of that down to come to trial based on all of this information, that's wild to me. But anyway, if you've made this far, thank you so much. You've got great taste, evidently. Make sure that you sprinkle your DNA all over that like button if you found this video to be of value for you. Also consider subscribing, and links to support are in the description. You can also become a member and be part of our Tastemakers community. Whatever your heart contents, the ways that you can support is linked up in the description below. Daisy Link, that is another case that we have covered that is very tragic in regards to the victim. In this case, Daisy Link is also the aggressor that took the abuser out of life. It was a real moral conundrum because you have a credible DV victim that ended up killing the husband because she felt her life was in danger. Like, we covered the case day by day. You can find the coverage on the playlist. It should be coming up on your screen now. I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood catch-up man, and this has been The Catch-Up.